My name is Karina Harney, Playboy's Playmate of the Year, 1992.
And I'm Echo Johnson, Miss January, 1993. Welcome to the Bunny Chronicles. Let's go.
Schreiber was with Playboy Entertainment from 1991 to 2001 and made his way up to Vice President of International Home Entertainment. But I loved when he told me that he started at Playboy as a temp.
In 91, I had been working in ad sales for radio and television syndicated programs. Okay. And I got laid off early in 1991, working for a show that our biggest advertiser was the U.S. Army.
Okay.
And when the Iraq War, the first Iraq War happened, I had to learn the hard way that when there's any kind of a war like that, the armed services stop advertising because it's considered bad taste to be advertising. Okay. So we had this big show, the most expensive show that this company had produced, and like 50% of the ads were for the Army. Mm-hmm. And a month before the show, the war broke out, and they pulled out. So half the revenue was gone. I got laid off. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm depressed. I went through this whole thing. And somebody said, just get any kind of work. It'll be good for you, and, put it out in the universe that you're available, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was just really good. I was always a good typist, I learned typing in high school. Like
right.
One of the few boys who took typing. Best class I ever took in high school.
Yeah.
Most useful skill, more than, algebra, geometry, anything. Touch typing.
Absolutely.
The best. At that time it was Lotus, not Excel, but, spreadsheets. Mm-hmm. I was good at all that stuff. I said, I'm just going to go work as a temp. At least, that way it'll be flexible if I want to go on job interviews for another real job, etc. So I signed up with a temp agency. And I remember getting a call one morning, like a week or so after I had, done the interview and tests and all that. Got a call at like 8 a.m, and it said it was Lane Revell Temp Agency. They said, would you have a moral issue working for Play? They said, well, we had somebody lined up to take this temp assignment at Playboy, and she called us this morning and said that she decided she's not comfortable morally. I said, I am. I'll do it. Can you be there in an hour? At the time I was living, not far from the offices. I said, sure. So I showed up an hour later at Playboy in the international TV and video department. They needed somebody just helping, like filing and coordinating stuff and organizing. And I was there for like a week. I thought, this is really fun here. People are really nice. I like the whole environment. And I went to the woman who was VP of that area. I brought my resume. I have been around for a while. I would love to come work here, like permanently. And it took about 6 months of negotiating and all that, but eventually I got a job. It was great. It was such a nice environment. They hired me. I was making like 40% less than I had been making before. International TV and home video.
So Tony Lane.
Yeah, Tony Lane. So I'd go to Cannes Film Festival. Yeah. I'd go to MeFed. They did a whole thing at VSDA with, I don't know how many playmates, 40 maybe, all in matching. Remember, I brought my sister and brother-in-law to one of those big Wet and Wild parties, and my brother-in-law thought this was like the best. A lot of celebrities. I was on the surfboard with Tawny Cable and Pia Reyes.
Oh, cool. Okay. And then Pia was in the pool and she had stuffed her bra.
She said, so she took them out because she knew that in the water slide they would pop out.
Right.
She said, would you mind stuffing them into your shorts?
Right. It was a show I did with Korea.
I loved Pia. I worked with Pia a lot. She was great.
Yeah, she was. She was super
a lot of fun.
VSDA, I'm so glad that you brought that up because Karina and I, we couldn't think of the name of the convention.
Video software deal ceased to exist when, because that was for like independent video store owners, retailers.
Okay.
Would have the the rent stores. Yeah, I mean, Blockbuster, those people would have big presences there, but what it was really for was the software deal, like the retailers, the small ones, because there used to be, in the 90s, there were thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
little video, corner video
Yeah.
stores where you go rent your VHS.
So how long were you at Playboy till they offered you a position, and what did that look like? And I really want to talk about Tony Lynn because he
Yeah.
was so near and dear to all of us.
So-
Incredible man to be able to work with. I'm sure
He was
so much.
wonderful. It took about 6 months to get this kind of junior sales position.
Okay.
And then I just kind of climbed my way up. The big shift happened in 1993 after I'd been there 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working closely with Suzanne,
Mm-hmm.
who was head of international. At that time, when they first hired me, she was TV and video, but that was growing. So they hired somebody else to handle the international TV, and then Suzanne was just video. She was VP of. Every year, Christy, we would do the annual kind of budget forecast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Christy would say, okay, you did, I don't know, pick a number, $2 million in business last year. This year you have to increase that by
Let's shoot for it.
15%. So you need to do, $2,300,000, whatever. So Christy had come to us and said, this is your number you have to meet next year. And Suzanne and I sat down and we looked at what was available to us, because at the time we were just selling the Playmate videos.
Okay.
The Playmate calendar and the, Playmate of the Year video, and there would
So it's pretty limited then.
Yeah, there would be like 10 or 12 videos a year. A couple of like sex guide kind of videos, whatever, some fantasy kind of videos. So there are only so many countries and only so many videos a year that, so we looked at it and said, there's no way to meet this number. I remember when we started, some Latin American markets were just opening up, some Asian markets were just opening up, some Eastern European markets were just opening up. So we figured, we said, there's no way to make these numbers. So Suzanne said, go figure it out. And there was at the time a pretty considerable library of older.
That's what I was going to say.
material.
The library was there just waiting for somebody to get
That's what we did.
Cool.
I got a catalog of what's in the library, and I was able to find, like 4 or 5 really junky old movies and some old television stuff. And then there was some short form programming.
Uh-huh.
I remember 3 pilots, half-hour pilots of shows that never got picked up, but were produced.
Uh-huh.
And there was a lot of short 8 to 12 minute videos that had been shot for one reason or another for television, right? So I was able to put together between some of the old movies that were awful, making a video like of 8 or 10 of these short videos, or I made one like a 90-minute movie out of the 3 as a collection of 10. And let's take it to the foreign markets and sell it with a different label. And one of the brands that Playboy owned was called After Dark.
Oh, okay. So
Right.
they owned it.
So we owned it, but then there was also the issue that, we had, licensees in different countries who were exclusive. They had the exclusive rights to the Playboy brand for video, right? So if we wanted to sell to another company, it couldn't have the Playboy brand on it, the name, because that would violate our exclusivity. So we said, we'll call it After Dark. And even those, companies that don't get to use the Playboy thing, it'll be prestigious for them to be associated with the Playboy company. Maybe they want to think, maybe if we do this brand for a couple years, then we can have a shot at getting the Playboy brand. I don't know, like the order, what came first, but After Dark was trademarked. So we went to Tony, because I'd done all the research. I'd said, this is going to cost some money to fix this stuff up. There's some music licenses that have to be cleared or replaced. There's some editing. So I worked with people in production department to figure out it was going to cost $80,000 to fix this stuff up, to make it sellable, plus, other costs to market it. So we took it to Tony and said, Christy wants us to make this this much of an increase, and this is the only way to do it. It's going to.
So I want to just interrupt you right there. So for our audience, Tony Lynn, tell a little.
Oh, okay. Tony Lynn. He was the president of the entertainment division.
Right.
At the time.
A big position.
And
a big department that brought in a ton of revenue.
More revenue than any other part of the company, like the majority of revenue. And Tony was a brilliant guy who had been in, television, primarily television, licensing for years. And the smartest man I've ever known.
Agreed.
Just as smart as could be.
Mm-hmm.
And a real visionary. He's the one who made Playboy TV what it was. Mm-hmm. Playboy TV was not successful, really, before Tony took over. Period. So Suzanne and I took this idea to Tony. He got it right away. And we said it's going to cost about $80,000 to fix this stuff up. And he said, "Got it. Here's what you do. Go ahead, spend the $80,000, and go to MeFed, which was at the time it was a big film and video sales convention in Milan, Italy.
Okay. And
it was only at that point, like we're talking like we're probably in July or August, so it's coming up soon.
Okay.
Right. So he says, "Go to MeFed and sell it." I said, "Okay." So we did the work. We got it all put together. We branded it. We, created art materials for it. And Suzanne and I went to Milan. We were late to the party, so, there were very few exhibit spaces even left open.
Okay.
So they put us with all the porn. we were in this lighted, tiny little, like practically a storage closet company.
Right.
But, we went there, and that first year, we brought in a little over $1 million in revenue on the $80,000 investment plus the cost of sending Suzanne and me to Italy.
So hence the beginning of that whole department.
Changed everything.
Yeah.
Because what happened was the next year, now we had created a situation that, okay, so we increased the our revenue for our division, our department, by well more than the amount that Christy had asked. Mm-hmm. So now the next year, we had to increase it above and beyond that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, oh God, what are we going to do? So we went back to the well, and I was able to come up with 6 more titles, but we needed 10. So we went to Tony, and that was kind of the start of them producing these kind of $300,000 movies that they would do with co-productions. They're very softcore. So a guy named Mark Bruder and a guy named Mark Greenberg both had production companies, and they would actually do the production as a co-production with Playboy. They would go on the channel, and then those first 4, that second year that we were doing this, those first 4 rounded out our second, slate for the next year. And then after that, there was nothing left in the library. So then it became 10 brand new movies a year that we would sell. Mm-hmm. So that changed our whole business, because there were 2 levels. The ones that we started with were like $300,000 movies, right? And then after that, then they started producing like $1.2 million movies. In those days, for those movies, they would get a couple of names, usually like older actors or maybe, TV actors whose careers weren't going that well. So they would get Corbin Burnson, I remember, and George Hamilton, and, I don't remember all the people, but they wouldn't do the nude. It just changed our whole business model.
Yeah.
That's what I won the Golden Rabbit for, was for coming up. It's beautiful. It's about so big, and it's brass. Started, I think, in 92 or 93. I won in the second year that they were doing it. And they didn't, it didn't have like a category like that. It was awarded to people throughout the company, all divisions, who made like an extraordinary contribution that year. You get a prize. It was $5,000, which was a lot of money. You get this beautiful statue thing. I don't know what you call it. I was telling Echo, if you remember in the Chicago office, in the lobby, there was that big metal bunny head sculpture. It was really cool, sort of a modernized brushed metal interpretation of it's a miniature version of that against a brass kind of a heavy plaque. So you get the $5,000, the plaque thing, and you'd go to Chicago and have an award ceremony just at a dinner with Christy. That was it was a big deal.
I mean, timing is everything. And
Yeah.
when you got in to your temp position at Playboy, like who knew that they were going to create this whole department? That's so awesome that you were there at that time.
My timing was great.
Yeah, and be a part of that.
You know, it was out of panic because what are we going to do? Christy wants this much more money and we can't produce it without some crazy new idea.
You know, let's talk about that. Because as I shared with you, we learned a lot from Michael Lee that no expense was ever spared to achieve the desired result. Also, the photographers have shared that with us as well.
Yeah.
The amount of money and time that went into just creating your centerfold, people would not even know. But then it parlays into the corporate side and all the different divisions. And it's like, it didn't matter. Absolute best, whatever you need, get it and make it happen.
It was such a different time. I remember because Michael Lee would tell me, you know, what he had spent just to create a centerfold for the props and the setup and all that, and it was an outrageous amount of money. Yeah, but the same applied to our travel and entertainment. Like the year that you and Jennifer Leroy came to Cannes, which was the year that Hef came. It was the first time Hef had been to the Cannes Film Festival in, 30 years or something crazy. And it was a big deal. And so my assistant at the time, who's remained a really good friend, Olenka. Olenka's one of my dear friends. She, because, she and I at the time were the ones who would go to the Cannes Film Festival because everybody else was going to MIPCOM. She worked just with me in the international.
Well, yeah, like the Cannes Film Festival, I went to several of those and I did a lot of international events. Yeah. Because I made it a point to know the right people and who was who in the department and make sure I go and see them, and ultimately ended up working a lot. And yeah, I mean, we were always flown business class and we'd check into a very nice hotel. That's right. And unlimited. Very much like staying at the mansion. There's not companies that I imagine had ever even operated like that.
I don't know, unless, top companies with their top employees.
Well, sure, like high level execs, but I mean, they kind of did this just across the board.
I remember there was a dedicated travel agent inside the company. He was a company employee. I don't remember his name. I can picture him and I can picture his desk. So if you had a trip coming, you'd go to him to book it.
But they wouldn't let us change planes because they were so afraid that we wouldn't figure that I guess other playmates got lost.
They used to book us full fare. They weren't like looking for stuff. I remember in those days, the round trip business class would be like $8,000. It was crazy. And then we'd spend like $600 a night at hotels, like at the top places. At Cannes that year, Hef wanted to stay on a yacht, so Olenka had to figure out how to rent a yacht for the 2 weeks. And then he was only there for like 5 days.
Yacht for 2 weeks and he was there for 5 days. Wow.
And so Tony and Dick Rossetti wound up staying on the yacht.
I went one year and stayed on the yacht with Tony. And
that was that year, because that was the only year that Hef came.
Oh, okay.
That's the year that I sent you those great pictures, which... First, that was so funny. Somewhere 96, 97, somewhere in there. Olenka had to deal with all that. And then, if we were going to dinner, like at a fancy restaurant out of town, we would hire a car for the night that would come pick us up at the hotel, take us to the restaurant and wait for us. And then take us, if we wanted to go somewhere else for a drink afterwards, take us there and wait for us there. And we would just... have them, send that, tack that bill onto the hotel, just, sign, for these outrageous, $20,000 hotel bills.
Sure.
Bring it back to Tony.
Tony would sign off.
Yeah.
How many years was Tony at Playboy? Do you know?
He came not long after I did, actually. I came a little bit before I did. So he came in 92, and he left a little before I did because... he left in 2000. Okay. And...
well, that's when the company really was starting to change a lot.
And then Jim English took over, and he axed a whole bunch of people.
Oh, that was at his doing. Okay.
Well, I think so.
Well, obviously it came down from
wherever, but I remember he was in charge of the whole division when in late 2000 there was like a massive round of layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that round, and I was asked to stay through American Film Market, which was in like February or March or something. So everybody's fired. Can you stay till March? Kind of thing.
Okay.
It was like, okay.
So I think it's funny how you started with the TEMP agency, and they asked you about if you had like a moral issue with it, because yesterday we found out when talking to Eric and Farrell that a good portion of like Playboy, I don't know if it was Playboy TV or Playboy Entertainment, but there was like a lot of employees that felt like that was like their last stop, and it was like a down. That shocked me.
I was so proud to work. It was a great place to work. I was very proud to work there. It was what people don't understand maybe is that it was incredibly professional.
Right, absolutely.
Very professionally run company, very open and positive environment. I remember people used to ask me that, they would say, I thought you were gay. You work at Playboy? Yes, and yes. And it was the most gay positive company.
Totally.
And man, absolutely.
Ahead of his time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a very, very open environment. It was a great environment. Great environment. I love it.
I mean, what a fundamental foundation for you then to go, because you went on and established your own company after this, right? Within that sort of
I stayed
arena.
in that arena for quite a while. I worked for myself for a while, representing, independent producers, and then at one point I got an incredible job for a company based in England. They relocated me to England for 2.5 years, and it was my second favorite job after Playboy. It was absolutely fantastic to live in Europe for a couple of years.
Yeah, definitely.
That was wonderful. And, one of the things, the little sidetrack I took while I was at Playboy, they made me for a while a new position. I'm trying to remember exactly. It was VP of cross-divisional marketing, something like that. Projects that involved all three divisions, publishing, television, or entertainment and licensing. And the big project that I wound up handling at that point, there was a big project for Farrah Fawcett when she came and was going to do a spread in the magazine.
So tell us about this. You oversaw all of the...
I was overseeing
the press for her. The amount of money they had to spend on that. I mean, it kind of went endless because she didn't really have the time.
So I had just done... I just coordinated the Playboy Entertainment's first separate website, because, there was still Playboy.com, but the entertainment division decided it wanted its own separate website.
Right,
so I had led that and gotten that off the ground. So they said, we need to create a website just for this project. And I came up with the name, which I think about it now, it's like, what were you thinking? It's so stupid. We called it Faradise.
Faradise.
It's called Faradise.com, and we created that and did a whole website on it. So I became kind of the point of contact for Farrah with the whole thing. And so I was on the phone with Farrah all the time. She brought me a big box, or did I go to her house? I forget if I brought... Anyway, she gave me a big box of pictures, including all these, like childhood pictures, things that had never been published before. I got them all professionally scanned and put onto the website and all that. So she was, at one point, she was calling me like 5-6 times a day.
I bet.
And she was going through a lot in her personal life. I don't want to speak to it all because it would be like third-hand gossip, and I don't want to do that.
She was battling her own demons.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
Yes, and somebody in her life who was a demon, and I'm not going to say his name. So she would call me up, like crying, and she'd talk about, the argument she'd had with this person or the other person on the production, and she'd say, "You're the only person I can talk to."
Oh no, you were her ear.
Yes. Well, I wasn't on set, so I was just like...
He was coordinating everything in the background.
So... Until at one point, she got upset with me. Something, you know, she thought I wasn't giving her pictures. Something. She had some.
Photographer. Who the photographer was on it?
I don't.
It was Stephen Leda.
I don't remember. It was a gorgeous photograph.
Yeah.
That with the gold paint and everything.
Yeah, Leda.
There were those beautiful Mylar posters, which I should have saved because I had like 100 of them, and I should have saved a few, and I didn't. And then she just decided that I was the devil.
She totally had to flip it. She flipped the script on you.
She flipped the script on me. So at one point, I had gone out to lunch or something, and she apparently went into my office
Looking for you.
looking for me and looking for her pictures. And so she found, you know, I had all of her pictures in a box, in a folder. She took that, but then she was like going through my desk, apparently.
Oh, wow.
And the security guard came and said, you know, what's going on here? And she closed the door.
On the
locked
security?
it. Yeah, and so Jeff Janest had to come. Jeff Janest had to come and get her, like, Farrah, you know, you really need to get out of Vinnie's office.
Yeah.
And then she just stopped talking to me because she said, you're whatever. I felt bad because she was not stuff, and there was some stuff missing, but nothing power bars kind of thing. Like,
She was hungry.
you know, fine. If Farrah wanted my power bar, she could have my power bar.
That's funny. So,
I felt bad
how
because she
long-
was messed up.
yeah,
Poor thing.
she wasn't fine.
She was
dealing with
battling a lot.
Yeah. How long was that project? I mean, wasn't it like a year?
Close to a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The promotional tour and the pay-per-view special. My job kind of ended once all the production was done and all the marketing for it. Yeah. At which point then she became more Dick Rossetti's problem.
Yeah. Yeah, she kind of bopped around each person having to deal with
If
her.
you talk to Dick, I'm sure he'll have a lot to say too.
I know, I'd love to have him on the show. That's funny.
I would throw 2 parties a year, the one at the film festival and one at American Film Market here in LA. And they gave me a budget of $40,000 for each party. Who gives you a budget of $40,000 to throw a party?
You don't.
Nobody does that anymore. It's unheard of.
Well, if you were his girlfriend, you did.
That's a different job.
That's an
That's an entirely different job. But yeah, $40,000 in like 1996 would be like $60,000.
Gosh, that's so wild.
Those pictures I sent you from Cannes, you and Jennifer are just in beautiful dresses. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just good. Look the part. Look the part.
And
Look the part. Represent the company.
if you remember this, when those pictures were taken, it was so funny. We were walking.
There's
to dinner.
paparazzi, right? On the side.
Well, they were sort of pretending to be paparazzi and acting like paparazzi.
Yes.
So you're walking down the main.
And they make you buy it.
That's right.
What happened?
The main drag there in Cannes is called the Croisette.
Yeah.
Runs along the beachfront, and you know, fancy shops and all that. So these guys come around, you know, pose for us, like they're paparazzi.
And I was so excited. Paparazzi.
Yeah. And you think, oh, you know, and you get all, and then they hand you a card and said, you know, starting tomorrow at this address, you can buy the picture. So like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But then the next day, Olenka and I were walking to work to the big convention hall called the Palais des Festivals, where
where the steps are, where the red carpet. Right?
Yeah, but that's also where the exhibit spaces are, where you're holding your meetings. So we're walking, and we just happened to walk past the little storefront where they were selling pictures that these fake paparazzi had taken them the day before. So we just said, well, let's go in and let's just see. And the pictures were great.
Yeah, they were.
They were great pictures. And I don't remember what they cost. It wasn't, a whole lot. And I said, I'm buying these. These are great.
Yeah, because I do have, so that one that you sent me, I don't know that I have a copy of that one, but I have a picture just of me. And I don't know if...
I didn't show you, but there's, I have another picture of just Olenka and me from that same session, which I also bought because it was like, what they were, worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
Worth it.
Definitely.
Like best picture.
Oh, I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. Those were just,
remember that vividly.
That was just so much fun. We had the best time of those trips.
Yeah.
as a very professional modeling agency.
Mm-hmm.
And, for those of us, who were running departments or that sort of thing, who periodically, we would have an event coming where, it was part of sort of the presentation, the Playboy way to have these, have a presence and you'd have some playmates there, to be sort of brand ambassadors, right?
Right, yeah.
And you learned really quickly, that, among the group of active playmates who were, actively doing that kind of work, you learned who were, really good to work with,
Mm-hmm.
who were, reliable and, okay, I know you've heard this. I'm almost embarrassed to use this phrase, but I'm sure you've heard it before a million times. We used to say that somebody would give good playmate.
I love that.
Give good playmate, which meant that they were just really good at it. They knew how to
And set the tone of the party.
Yeah, it was. Are you going to show up looking glamorous and have a great attitude and be friendly and be able to converse with? I can tell you stories about some playmates who got drunk.
Stories.
And I had to tend to, but even more importantly, in a way, you would get clients who would get out of hand.
I think one of them too was doing cartwheels in the lobby.
But I remember there was one party, the party I was telling you about earlier, at the restaurant in Westwood, which was a big deal party. We had hired a fairly famous singer who had, Lainey Kazan, who had been the headliner at the Playboy Club in Century City for many years and actually ran the booking to where it was called Lainey's Room.
Okay.
She's a, famous singer and actress, and she came and sang a few songs, and it was a big deal party. And we had, 5 or 6 playmates there. I thought you were there that night, maybe not. And one of the playmates was Victoria Silvstedt.
Mm-hmm.
What a sweetheart she was. A big, sweet, tall sweetheart. She's at this party, and they also tell you, as somebody who's hired playmates for your event, that you're responsible to make sure that they're treated well by whoever. So there she is at this party, and it's before kind of dinner and before the entertainment. She's standing at the bar talking to this older gentleman, and he's getting a little inappropriate. And he keeps kind of, reaching over and putting his hands on her. And I see this, and I look over it, and I catch her eye. It's like, do you need me to come?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I've got this. And what she did, it was genius. She was so good. And, I looked at her and he would be doing this, and she never broke eye contact with him and never broke the smile. She's smiling and listening, and she would just take his hand off of her
while she's
talking and listening, and he'd go and it was never really horrible.
I found a letter from Bill Farley. It was a reprimand to all the playmates after that had happened, because I literally have kept every single letter I ever got from Playboy and all my pay stubs and whatnot. And so I came across that recently, and I had shared it with Victoria Fuller because she brought it up, and I was like, oh, I have that reprimand letter. And then I wrote something back going, yes, me and my fellow playmates, we have just been appalled by the behavior of some of these new girls. They are not up to par at all.
You know what? 90+% of the playmates I worked with were fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. So what are you up to these days now?
For the last 10 years, I was building a couple of internet companies, a vitamin company and a coffee company and a company that makes little nut butter snacks. But I've stepped down from those roles now, and I'm working on what's next. I'm not even sure. I'm taking a little time off.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that. And it's we were talking before you had come down how it's so interesting how you can always reinvent yourself throughout the decades of your life.
Getting up there in the years. I'll be 70 in 2 years.
Will you?
Yes, which is just
handsome.
No, but it's like I don't, that's why I stepped down after 10 years, building these companies and had a great time doing it, very successful at it.
It's taxing.
It's very taxing. And it's like, okay, I need to take a breath. I'm thinking about relocating possibly to Europe. So
Cool.
get Spain and we can get south of France
Nice. Good for
as a
you.
place to live. But exactly, I mean, that's if you live in any of those places, like where do I want to go for the weekend? I'll go to Paris for the weekend. It's an hour, by plane kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I definitely see myself doing that later in life.
And I have a European passport now, so I can move to Europe as easily,
Good for you.
as moving to Arizona. That's kind of where I am now. Relaxation after building a company for 10 years stage.
Well, rightfully so, and well deserved, Andy. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Totally.
It's been
Totally my pleasure. It was great. I haven't seen you in years.
I know.
It's been a really long time.
That's been my favorite part about this is just reconnecting with our Playboy family.
Yeah. And it really was a family. I agree. And I think Hef set the tone for the whole company for that, that combination of professionalism and fun and work with him a lot. I didn't know him well, but I certainly, met with him. I don't know how many times. And he was always just a pleasure. He was kind of, first time it's kind of weird. And even though that this is what to expect, the first time I went to the mansion for a meeting with him, we would meet in the dining room, big giant dining room. And he comes in, in the pajamas and bathrobe, silk robe. And that's like, okay, this is a little weird, but completely professional, completely, it makes you feel at ease and home and right to business.
Yeah.
And just, I have, he's
So
going to be kind and smart and professional and a gentleman.
a lot of people would say it's like, oh, you girls were just objectified, and it's like, no, that's not at all.
He respected women.
Yeah.
He absolutely respected them.
If you want to get into bed, cool. If you did it, cool. It's all good.
He was very respectful of women, and as you said, there was a time when you didn't think that women had their own kind of sexual agency, and that was not what he was about. He was about, women have every right to sexual agency as men. He was revolutionary in that way.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect segue into then the two questions that we always end the show with. So, 3 words that define Hugh Hefner to you.
Gentleman, brilliant, kind.
Very good. All right. Second question. Had you had the opportunity to see or say anything to Hef before he passed, what would you have said?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would have said, thank you for being a role model and for your tremendous philanthropy.
Yeah, the philanthropic endeavors were massive.
I don't think many people know that we wouldn't still have the Hollywood sign if it weren't for him. I have nothing but admiration for him, truly. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really fun.
Lovely to
really
see
fun.
you and excited to share this with our audience.
I'm looking forward to seeing it myself.
Yeah. That's a wrap.